Hello friends, in the last lecture we discussed the evolution of the state in Europe. Even if you have not understood city-state, don't trouble yourself, a vague idea is enough. So today I will start with the Greek political thought, okay? So I will start with Greek political thought. And in the Greek political thought, the two thinkers in the syllabus are Plato and Aristotle. Fine. Now, what is the significance of these two scholars? The significance of these two scholars is that it is said that the Western political thought is nothing but footnotes to Plato and Aristotle. Okay. So first understand what I say. I will keep on telling when to write. Sometimes I will dictate. Sometimes I will tell you that you can write side by side. Sometimes you will have to focus on understanding rather than writing. Okay. So right now we will start with Greek political thought, and we will start with these two thinkers, Plato and Aristotle. Now, what is the significance of these scholars? What is the importance of studying these scholars? Fine. So, in your copies, you can write, right? It is said that the entire Western political thought is nothing but footnotes to Plato and Aristotle. Fine, I am writing it here. It is said that the entire Western political thought is nothing but footnotes to Plato and Aristotle. Please pay attention to the spelling of these two scholars, Plato and Aristotle, because I have seen students committing mistake, and instead of writing Aristotle, sometimes they write Aristotle, T-O-T-A-L. Don't commit this error. because they are very respectable personalities in the history of Western political thought. Okay. Now, what does this term footnotes determine? Footnotes. What does this statement means? That entire Western political thought is nothing but a footnote to Plato and Aristotle. Fine? It means that if we compare the work of Plato and Aristotle with those of the later day thinkers, what we will find? Almost every idea in the Western philosophy is written by Plato and Aristotle. Almost every idea in the Western philosophy is written by Plato and Aristotle. It means that the later day scholars, they have nothing new to say. It means that the work of other scholars is nothing but commentaries or explanations of their thought. So, between a person explaining and the person giving a thought, the greater importance is of the person who is giving the thought. And you must be knowing that Aristotle and Plato, fine? Plato is known as father of political philosophy, and Aristotle is known as father of political science. Fine? And Plato and Aristotle, they are also related to each other. So, related to each other in the sense Aristotle was the disciple of Plato. So Plato is a teacher and Aristotle is the disciple. Fine? And the interesting thing is Aristotle is known as the greatest disciple of Plato. At the same time, he is also known as the greatest critic of Plato. Okay? So Aristotle is the greatest disciple of Plato as well as the greatest critic of Plato. Fine? So, in the introduction to the Greek political thought, you can write that it is said that the entire Western political thought is nothing but footnote to Plato and Aristotle. What does this statement means? Write it down. What does this statement means? So write that this statement shows the importance of their contribution. I am repeating, you can write. This statement shows the importance of their contribution. Okay? Now in the next line you write, if Plato is known as father of political philosophy, I am repeating, if Plato is known as father of political philosophy, Aristotle is known as father of political science. Fine. Next, write Plato and Aristotle were connected to each other. Fine. Right. Aristotle was the disciple of Plato. Next, write. Next paragraph you write, Aristotle is known as the greatest disciple of Plato. Fine. Next line you write, Aristotle is also known as the greatest critic of Plato. Fine. Now in your copies you write why Aristotle is known as the greatest disciple and the greatest critic. Write this question. Why Aristotle is known as the greatest disciple and the greatest critic. You have written this question. Now you put this question in a box. We will do it later on. I hope you have understood. So in your copies you write why Aristotle is known as the greatest critic as well as the greatest disciple. Why? And just put this in a box and we will do this question only later on when we know the thoughts of both of these two scholars. Fine. Next, you write another question. You write, what does it means to say that the Western political thought is nothing but footnotes to Plato and Aristotle? Okay, and then you write elaborate, and again you make a box. Even this question we will do later. Okay, but for the time being, understand in short. Okay, write it down. Write it down. When we say the entire Western political thought as footnotes, it means that whatever we study in the political science has its origins in their work. It means that whatever we study in political science, its origin is in their work. Fine. Right. It appears as if they have left nothing. It appears as if they have left nothing. Okay. Next, write, it appears as if the work of later day scholars is nothing more than the explanation or commentary or footnote to these scholars. Fine, right? This statement shows the significance of these two thinkers. Okay. Next question in the box format you write, why Plato is known as father of political philosophy? Close this box. Next box you write, why Aristotle is known as father of political science? Again, make this box. So all these questions we can answer only when we know their thoughts. Okay. Now, what are we studying? Don't write, understand. What are we studying? We are studying the Greek political thought. Or we can say ancient Greek political thought. Okay. So you know what are we going to study? The political thought will be about what? So political science begins and ends with the state. Hence, the political thought will be about the state. Fine. So are we going to study geographical thought? Are we going to study economic thought? No. We are going to study political thought. Means something related to the state we will be studying. Fine. So whatever you do, you should know what you are going to study. So one thing is clear, that the term political comes from the word polis. Polis means state. So we are going to study about the state. Fine. And we are going to study about which state? Which type of state was there in ancient Greece? We are going to study about the city-state. Fine. So we have to understand ancient Greek political thought. So basically, what was the opinion of the Greeks towards the institution of a state? How Greeks looked at the state. There were many Greek thinkers, but the tallest of these thinkers are Plato and Aristotle. So we are specifically seeing that how these scholars looked at the state. Fine. So in ancient Greek, how the people looked towards the state and how these scholars looked towards the state. And as you already know, the meaning of this word thought, I told you the meaning of the word thought. So thought is, we are studying about a state with reference to the time. Which time? Ancient Greece. Which space? Greece. What? Political. So now we will study how the people in ancient Greece looked at the state. Okay. Now when we are going to understand their views, it makes sense to understand which type of society the Greek society was at that point of time. For example, if you have to know a person, you should also know about his family, about his background. Similarly, when we have to study the Greek political scholars, we should also know about their background. What was the social system? What was the political system? Or in short, what was the way of life in the Greece? Fine. So every person in his ideas will have some reflection of the society, the community to which he belongs. So it makes sense that we also try to understand which type of society or way of life the Greeks had. Okay. So in your copies you write that in order to understand the ideas of these scholars, it is essential know what was the Greek way of life, right? It is essential to know the social, economic, cultural background, environment, milieu. Okay? Right? Why it is important to understand the background of a thinker. Okay? Why it is important? We are not studying history, but still, why we should be knowing about the time of Plato? Fine. So, two reasons. First reason you write, every thinker is a child of his times. Okay, I am writing it here. You can write the name of a scholar who said. So there is one scholar, Laski, an important person. And Laski is not only a great political scholar, he was also the teacher of Pandit Nehru. And there has been lot of influence of Laski on the ideas of Pandit Nehru. And the type of socialism that is mentioned in Indian Constitution is to large extent taken from Laski, because Nehru was the disciple of Laski or a student of Laski. So that's a separate story. Right now, just write that according to Laski, every thinker is a child of his times. Fine, right? According to Laski, every thinker is a child of his times. Means, what does this statement means? Right? You have written that every thinker is a child of his time. So what does this statement means? You can write that. It means that there is a big influence of the circumstances on thinker. Right? Some students ask, what is the meaning of a child of its times? So this is nothing but English language. Means every thinker is a product of his circumstances. Every thinker is always influenced by what is happening around. Fine? So my question was, why should we study about the historical conditions prevailing in ancient Greece at that time? We are not the student of we are not the student of history. But we have to understand that history and politics is very interrelated. If you have a good knowledge of history, you can have a good understanding of politics also. Fine. But here, just understand that a particular thinker, when we analyze his thoughts, we can see the reflection of his times, the circumstances prevailing. Okay? So every thinker is a child of his time. Fine. If you have not written, you can just write it down. It shows that the thinking of a person is influenced by his environment. Okay? Now the second point. The second point is right? Second point is every person is a product of his community, right? Every person is a product of his community. We always come to know, like in the thought of every person, there will be the influence of his background. Okay, so these are the two things we should keep in mind, and that is why we will have to study these things also. Now in your copies you write the salient features of the Greek society at the time of Plato and Aristotle. Or you simply write the salient features of the Greek society in the salient features of the society in ancient Greece. What is our purpose? Our purpose is to know the salient features of the Greek society in ancient times. The reason is that we should know why a Plato is saying so. There will always be the influence of his society on Plato, salient features. Okay, and we will also come to know what type of people the Greeks were. Okay, so first of all, the Greeks were living in the city states. Write it down. Greeks were living in the city states. Right? Further, unlike the modern nation state, you can write that. Unlike the modern nation states, the city state was a smaller entity, because many cities will combine in a state. So unlike modern nation state, the city state was a smaller entity. Okay, right? It was a highly decentralized system. It was a highly decentralized system. So in Machiavelli, I will teach you about nation state, and then you will come to know why it is centralized system. Fine? Right? Each state was a sort of self-sufficient entity. You can write again, each state was a sort of self-sufficient entity. Next point you write, since it was very small, there was no difference in the social and political. Right? Since it was too small, fine, state and society was overlapping. And it's a small thing, so state can have a control over the entire society. So write it down. In Greeks, there is no difference in the state and society. In Greeks, there is no difference in state and society. Hence, for Greeks, no difference in the term social and political. City-state is a small unit. Suppose this is a society, and the city's state and society is almost same. And in Greek language, when we use the term social, it is also political. Social, political is not different. For example, Aristotle held that man is by nature a social animal. You can also write this statement as man is by nature a political animal. So social and political is one and the same thing. Okay, even if you don't understand, ignore it, not so important. Second, write the economic system. Right, economic system. Fine. So what you can write that? Point number one, it was an agricultural society. It was an agricultural society. Fine. And who were involved in the task of production? Slaves. Fine. The main sort of labor was slaves. That is why there was a role, or there was a slave society. Fine. So society in ancient Greece, its economic system was agriculture. Who were involved in agriculture? The slaves. Is this clear? Next, write social system. Social system. How the Greek society was. Point number one, it was a hierarchical society. Fine. Hierarchical society means, what is the opposite of hierarchical society? Equality. Fine. So equality is a opposite of hierarchical society. So Greek society was hierarchical. What do you mean by hierarchical society? It means it was divided into classes. Like ancient India or even present India, our society is also hierarchical. Hierarchical means when everybody is not treated equal. So there, society was divided into classes. In India, if I say, India has also been a hierarchical society and divided into castes, like upper caste, lower caste. In Greeks also, upper class, lower class. So there was a hierarchical society. Fine. And like ancient Indians, the Greeks also believed that the Greeks also believed that inequality is not only natural, it is also desirable. Fine. So Greek society is hierarchical society. Hierarchical society means which is based on, hierarchical society is what? Which is based on inequality. So you must be knowing that equality is a very important value. It is something very value or a norm in modern times. Neither in East nor in West in ancient time, equality was appreciated. It was always believed that people are unequal by birth. In Indian caste system, we find that people are belonging to different castes. So there was inequality by birth. Similarly, in ancient Greek civilization also, there was inequality by birth. And Greeks always believed that inequality is good, inequality is natural, inequality is desirable. Fine. So if someone asks you why Greek society is called as hierarchical, your answer should be because, what will be your answer? Because the Greeks believed that inequality is not only natural but also desirable. This is very important. For them, inequality is not only natural but also desirable. They always believed in inequality. Okay. Next, in the same point you write, this is the reason that the Greek scholars justified slavery. Also desirable. They always believed in inequality. Okay. Next, in the same point you write, this is the reason that the Greek scholars justified slavery. Like in India, there has been the exploitation of the poor or the members of untouchable community. Similarly, in the West also, there has been the institution of slavery which continued till the modern times, or you can say till the 19th century. Okay, so Greeks justified slavery. So the society was hierarchical. Greeks believed that inequality is neither natural, inequality is also desirable, and that is why when we will see the Greek thinkers, we will find them nowhere they are talking about equality. They are actually suggesting that inequality is justified, and they also support the slave society. Slavery was in practice, and hence when we will study Aristotle, we will find that Aristotle has justified slavery. When we will study Plato, we will find that Plato has shown that people are unequal by birth. So these are the scholars who are justifying inequality and who don't appreciate equality. And you must remember that equality is a value, equality is a norm, equality is a value system. We should treat people equally. But this is a feature of modern times. So while we are discussing these societies, you should keep on comparing what are a common point between the East and the West. You should also be comparing what is the difference between the ancient and the modern outlook. So those who are modern, they believe in equality, they believe in dignity. Those who are not modern, those who are traditional, they believe in hierarchy, inequality. Okay? Now, next feature of the Greek society is it was a patriarchal society. Patriarchal society. Patriarchal society means a male dominated society where women have been confined to the four walls of family, where the women have been confined to four walls of family, no participation of women in public sphere. No participation of women in public sphere. Fine. So I hope you have written, otherwise just write. It was a patriarchal society, means it was a male dominated society, which means women were confined within the four walls of family. No participation of women in public sphere means in politics. Okay. Next you write that, and again you find the similarity between Indian and the Greek thinking. Indian society was also patriarchal if we go by Manu Smriti. And Indian society continues to remain patriarchal. So what is the difference between a traditional society and a modern society? The traditional society believes in inequality between sexes. Modern society believes in gender equality. So modernity is a value. Even in 21st century, your approach can be traditional. Fine. So if you say I am a modern person, the first thing is you will have to believe in equality. You see that fundamental rights in India, which is the first right, right to equality. What was the objective of the Constituent Assembly? The Constituent Assembly aimed at transforming the Indian society, which was highly traditional, into a modern society. And that is why our constitution is known as transformative constitution. And the most important value in that transformative constitution is equality. Okay? Now next you write that Greeks, next point about the Greeks, Greeks can be called as ethnocentric people. They can be called as ethnocentric people. Ethnocentric means believing in the superiority of themselves. Fine. So they believe in the cultural superiority of themselves. Ethnocentrism is feeling of superiority of themselves, their culture. Ethnocentrism is a basis for racism. So Greeks were the racial people. They believed in their superiority, and they used to address the people living outside the Greek region as barbarians. Barbarians means uncivilized. Fine. So the Greeks were racial, and this characteristic is still present in the Western world. Racism, treating others as barbarians, the concept of civilizing mission, and so on. So we have seen the significance of Plato and Aristotle in the history of Western political thought. And I told you, in order to understand any thinker, it is also essential to understand the social and the political background. Fine. So now I will start with Plato. Okay. Now, if you ask the introduction of Plato, the introduction of Plato is Plato as the father of political philosophy. Plato as the father of political philosophy. Okay, so write the introduction of Plato. Plato is a father of political philosophy. Okay, now what is philosophy? Fine. My next question is, what is philosophy? The second question is, who is the father of philosophy? Fine. And then the third question should be clear to you is, what is the difference between philosophy and political philosophy? I am again repeating, the task for you all today is to, we should be able to define what is philosophy. We should be able to define, or we should be able to differentiate between philosophy and political philosophy. Is this clear? Fine. So, what are the important questions raised here is, our first task is, what is philosophy? Then, who is the father of philosophy? And how can we distinguish between philosophy and political philosophy? Fine. So now I will tell you about the origin of philosophy. Okay. So in your copies, you can write father of philosophy. And who is a father of philosophy? The father of philosophy is Socrates. Who is regarded as the father of philosophy? Fine. So, Socrates is regarded as the father of philosophy. And why do we need to study Socrates? Because we have to study Plato. Now, what is the relationship between Plato and Socrates? The relationship is, Plato is a disciple of Socrates and Aristotle is a disciple of Plato. Fine? And there is a huge influence of Socrates on Plato. And if Socrates has given philosophy, Plato has given political philosophy. Okay. So without knowing philosophy, we cannot understand political philosophy. And to know philosophy we will have to understand Socrates. Okay, so the answer to your first question, what is philosophy and who is a father of philosophy? Because what is philosophy? Who can define? The one who has given. Okay, so rather than understanding anything, why not hear from the horse's mouth? So if Socrates himself is a father, what he has to tell about philosophy? You have understood this? So the first question was, what is philosophy? The second question was, who is a father of philosophy? So the answer is, Socrates is known as the father of philosophy. And what is philosophy? Who else can explain it better other than who himself has given philosophy? Is this point clear? And then, why to study Socrates? Because we cannot study Plato without studying Socrates. Is this clear? So, in your copies, you write, Socrates is the father of philosophy. Okay? Now write, who was Socrates? Okay? Who was Socrates? Write this next question. Who was Socrates? Fine. Now to know Socrates, who was? Suppose if I have to know who was Gandhi, then maybe I will have to understand how the contemporaries of Gandhi wrote about him, what is the opinion of Nehru on Gandhi, what is the opinion of others on Gandhi. Fine. So who am I? Fine. So I am what you all perceive me. Fine. So who was Socrates? There is no better description of who was Socrates than the one given by Plato. Okay? So if you write this question, who was Socrates? Write it down. Right. There cannot be any better description of Socrates. Right. There cannot be any better description of Socrates than what was given by Plato. Okay. So who was Socrates? If we want to know about him, ask Plato. Fine. Now, how Socrates or how Plato described Socrates? Write this question. How Plato described Socrates. Okay. Right. Plato described Socrates as the wisest man on this earth. So if you want to describe Socrates, what is a characteristic of a Socrates? Suppose somebody asks you who was Mahatma Gandhi. What will be your answer? Mahatma Gandhi was born on 2nd October, his parents were this. No. As a person, how we know about Gandhi? Okay. Who has described Gandhi? Whose description of Gandhi is the best? Any idea? The best description of Gandhi actually